My name is Jason Gilmore. I'm the current president of the Dauphin Rail Museum. The museum itself is located within the Dauphin Rail Station, a Pratt-designed station built in 1912 for the Canadian Northern Railway, and is a Class 1 station, only one of two in Manitoba, with the second being Union Station in Winnipeg. So the reason we're here today is to try and bridge that gap between the artifacts that are contained within the museum and the connection between people in the community. So what we're going to try and do here today is just have several members of the Dauphin community that have been in railway throughout their lives, just talking stories of what they did and some of the interesting facts that they experienced during that time.
Gonna catch the next train and I'll move on down the line. Yeah. Well, I'll be ready now. I'll be ready when my train pulls in.
Now I look at it this way. He should have been here 20 minutes ago, but he's running still on CN time.
That's right.
Always late.
Yeah.
That's one. Now there's two generations here. We have the steam engine generation and I'm diesel electric generation.
That's right. Yeah, steam engines were my pets. I loved those. I could fire one when I was 14 years old. Where I lived in the Paw,
Okay.
the tracks were from here to the sidewalk out there. And of course I knew my dad worked on the railroad and I knew all the engine crews, and my dad never looked for me on Saturday and Sunday. I was always in the yard engine. They were teaching me how to run it. 14 years old, I learned how to fire one.
So you did a good job at it?
No, but
But they let you do it anyway.
yeah, let me well. They trained me well. There's some good engine men up there.
Interesting times back in the day.
Yeah, that's mind you, that's going back 60 years ago. 1955. I think I was about 14 then.
So and that was your introduction into the railroad.
Well, I always, where I lived in the Paw, I used to have a switch key, and today if you had one of those, you'd go to jail. All the trains coming in from the north, I knew all the crews, Okay. I knew all their signals, and I used to stand by there was a water tower right across the track from our house, and that was the main line, and they gave me the signals to put that train in the yard. And I knew them all, what track they were going to. The guy gave me the signal as he was coming down. I'd throw the switches, line them up, put them in the yard. And of course I got a ride on the steam engine, Or got a ride on the engines. They always pick stop, or not stop, I could get on the move, but yeah, that's I always liked steam. I never liked the diesel. Steam engine had a power to it, you seen the power. Diesel, all you heard is that little hum of the engine and the way they went.
Yep, and it put you to sleep.
Yeah.
No matter how rested you were, you get on the engine, half an hour as a break when you're sitting there, I'm not doing anything, just supposed to check look back at the train. And within half an hour you're dozing.
Yeah, you've got a, nothing like the old steamers they used to. I can remember them like when I was a kid, like I say, I lived right there at the Paw, and when they were hauling grain, limited to 40 cars to a train, with the old wooden, going Churchill grain. 40 cars was the limit, and they used to leave the Paw once the grain haul started, there'd be just a steady stream of trains, about 20 minutes apart on their block.
Holy.
Just following them out of the Paw, and going to church. And sometimes they didn't make. They got diesels. When they got diesels in there, they used to put on these 160 car trains.
Yeah.
Used to run a pool to see how far they'd go before they derailed. We had many pilots. I can remember one. It was at Button. That's just south of Woboden. They put 27 car lengths, or 27 cars in a pole length and a half of telegraph poles.
That is a lot of cars.
Well, they were wooden. They just broke up.
Yeah, they break up to nothing anyway.
There's nothing there. They're all wooden cars. But like I say, in the tail end guy grabs an air hose. He probably broke an air hose, walks up, boom. There's 27 cars. And they had lots of drills. Rain. Of course, they never had the track equipment like they got today to rebuild it. They bring the auxiliary from the Paw and the auxiliary from Gillen, punch a hole through, and make it open for the trains, the other trains.
New track and away you go.
Yeah. was something to see. So, you go up there and like I used to do a lot of when I was working out of the father. You get on the passenger train. You didn't know how far you were going if there was grain ahead of you. You know. But not very often did they delay the passenger trains. We got stuck a couple times, but ordinarily they did. You know, they like one time they had a derailment. I was sitting on the passenger train at the Paw going north, and they had a spill north of Woboden. But the passenger train, for some reason, they switched trains at Woboden. They changed us at Woboden. You know, send us north, sent the other train, turned it, put it south. I don't know why, but because the derailment was north of Woboden. There was lots of that, man. Those poor guys in that auxiliary, they were going steady there when the grain haul started.
Full-time job.
Oh, gosh. So one time we had 3 auxiliaries up there. We had the Melville auxiliary, the Gillum auxiliary, and the Paw auxiliary clearing track. There were so many derailments. But that's, you know, like I say, now with all this, you've got crushed rock road beds. You know, it's all good valves.
Well, the equipment they wouldn't have had even for repairs wasn't, I mean.
Oh, now they got those track dampers that pull in there and they just whip through that. You know, they can do a mile in no time to re-tamper, rebuild whatever the damage is. Not like the old days, everything was by hand.
By hand, yeah.
Yeah. Well, they used to take, I noticed the auxiliaries had a flat car with special rails, not special rails, but made up rail blocks. They're 33-foot rails. Ties were nailed to them and they would just come along, drop them off, they'd skid them up into place. You know, because the other ties were all smashed and broken. They just cleaned that out of the way and put this new rail in, or, you know, the blankets of rail that they had.
What kind of a prefab?
Yeah,
It was all this right?
Yeah, they had them in the auxiliaries.
Okay.
I mean, well, we don't have too much continuous welded rail up in this country. Main line, I don't know what they do. If they get a break there, they just cut it and, you know, put a new chunk in. But, you know, railroad was totally different. And you could just, since I I was 56 when I hired on as an apprentice in Transcona. And we went from steam to diesel, and after that I hated working on diesel. When I got to the Paw, I went there to, because I was from the Paw, and they needed a apprentice for the diesel shop. And you always got shipped out of Transcona for your diesel training. So I said, okay, I'll go to the Paw. Well, I lived in the Paw.
Yeah.
As it ended up, I went to the diesel shop, which I hated. And you got 1962, I got out on the road. I got onto the district electricians. Our territory was, well, from Dauphin to Churchill, everything north of here. And I got the heck out of that diesel shop. Because I didn't like stinky and dirty. It was the best move I ever made, though.
So that's where continue on with. Okay, I'm not even sure exactly what you were doing.
Well, I was an electrician.
Electrician, okay.
Yeah.
Repairing what parts? I mean.
Well, we wired tool houses. We put in, like at Gillum, the town of Gillum at that time was CN supplied the power, so we maintained the power lines, the company houses. I mean, we had a lot of stuff in Gillum. We had the station and all these company dwellings, which we looked after. We wired, or if they needed wiring or something. And you take in Woboden, Churchill, Gillum, all these places. Plus we went like Ilford, Thompson, wherever there was work to be done, we did it.
Yeah.
Like in Gillum and Thompson and Churchill, we put in platform lighting for the passenger trains. You did all that stuff. And then of course we had the Churchill excursions, which you went on. That was we left the Paw on a Saturday morning, went to Flin Flon, went up to Thompson, and then Thompson to Churchill. And 250 people on, all Americans.
On the freight train? On the
the excursion train. That was a special train. Okay. And the Americans, when we got north of Gillum, they figured we should have a steam engine on there. Yeah, where's your steam engine, you guys? What are you talking about? We had 2 big 4100s on the head end.
Yeah.
I said, oh, they'll probably put them on a Churchill. And they just, they were so different, those Americans, because they got up there we got to Flin Flon one day we had a guy on from Florida. And of course we're parked in Flin Flon, which is one of our toughest places to park our train. And we're sitting there and I went into the station and this guy from Florida is taking a piece of, this is at nighttime, because we used to left Flin Flon about midnight. And we're all set up and charging the cars. We had a battery charging car. He's tearing into this young operator. I want to phone the vice president of the railroad. So I stuck my nose in there and I says, what's the problem, sir? Well, and it was something like 90 degrees in Thompson, you know, and where we were parked by the station, I don't know if you ever, or Flin Flon, sorry. Have you ever been to Flin Flon? Your station's here, and you split your train, run one half here and it was in a hole and hot. We're supposed to get cold weather when we come to north. I said, sir, the vice president of the railroad isn't going to give you any help. So I got him cooled down and we get to Thompson the next day. It's about 85 or 90 in Thompson. Well, he's still upset. But when we get to Churchill, it's about 40 degrees, snowing and raining. They were so happy. Oh my God, this is what we came for, yeah. Well, but those trains, you met a lot of good people on, met a lot of different people, but some of them, they didn't have a clue where they were in Canada. I mean, you're supposed to tack a steam engine on because we're north of the border.
That's where they offer. Yeah, that's what they expected.
Yeah.
Not knowing better.
No, they didn't have a clue.
Didn't have a clue.
It would have been nice if we had a great big 6,000 steam engines tag on there and you give them a ride, but yeah. And we had all these other trains. We had that was 63 was my first special train. I went out. It was the Eclipse train, Eclipse of the Sun, and that was at Wivenhoe at mileage 304 on the Thicket sub. That's 22 miles south of Gillam. They parked. We went up at a huge train. We went up at 93, and they split us at Gillam, brought us back to Wivenhoe, and I got off at Wivenhoe going up because they stopped the train. We had to start setting up, and they were going to split the train in Gillam and bring this one section back. 4 o'clock in the morning, beautiful. I'm walking down the track, and you're not expecting anybody. This guy, hello, how are you? I must have been this high off the ground. And I said, what the you doing here? Well, we're waiting for the Eclipse of the Sun. But we had all these scientists, and it was so interesting. They brought all this equipment back to us, and we had a battery charging car we had to power all their telescopes, because they set those telescopes up, and they said, and I'm watching these guys, and they set all these telescopes up, and they follow the sun, basically. These things are timed, and you can just see them moving like this, following the eclipse of the sun was a total failure. Just like somebody said, oh, we'll pull the cloud. Just this big cloud come over, that was it.
Finished.
But they said, oh, that happens, you know. But they didn't care. They just happens, you know. And so just packed everything up and back to Gillam with our train, and they hooked us onto 92 coming south. But yeah, and then that was 63, and then I had all these Churchill excursions right till 1975. We ran excursions. 78 we ran a frost train, and that was probably the most interesting train I've ever been on. Scientists from all over the world, Japan, China, Russia. And I said, what are you guys doing here? Oh, we have permafrost too. But they come up to inspect, like we have up in that, and you ever been to Churchill, worked at Churchill?
No.
Oh, but up there they have probes in the ground to check the permafrost. They always have problems. I had this one engineer, he was talking with me, and we got talking about different things. And he didn't use any big words, so I was lucky. So he was telling me that you know, like you ever seen the Sun King when the rails bend?
Oh yes, yeah.
He was telling me that, I forget where it was, but he says, yeah, he says I was at a place, a whole section, a curve, a whole section. They broke the couplers on the rails, swung it right out into a farmer's field. Well, what did they do? Well, they just dragged it back and retamped it and rehooked it. But they were interesting. Like these guys, I couldn't figure out what all these guys were doing, and then they told me we got permafrost just like you. But they figured out why the CN had so much problems up there with permafrost. Here's your track, they dug ditches. The ditches filled with water in the summertime, drew the frost out, now you got a soft spot. Yeah, he says that's why they have so much trouble. I don't know I don't think the CN ever changed it, but they, on that 78, yeah, that was in 78, well after that we had, I had a couple other, I used to go with the business car in 92 with the vice president all the time whenever you went to Killam or Flin Flon or, spend the whole weekend spending with those guys. Then 1976 had the American Bicentennial train. That was a fun run, but it went down to Duluth, Minnesota, or Duluth, where is it? Minnesota, or where's Duluth? Minnesota, or we had to run this train from Duluth to Port Francis.
Okay.
Had all these Americans on there. We had a huge train. And the vice president who was on there, Ralph Hansen, I got a camera, I want to get some pictures, eh? And I'd been with him many times with his business car, Dauphin here. And he says, what are you doing? I said, I'd like to get some pictures of this train. I'm not going to be around for the next bicentennial train. So he gets this railway cop and he says, okay, you take him and run him ahead of the train, wherever you can get pictures. I says, no, I just want a picture of this train leaving Duluth. Oh, okay. Tells the conductor, okay, you protect the tail end. Where are you going to start? I said, I'm going to go up to the head end, and as soon as they start pulling, I want to get a picture of the train leaving Duluth. Okay. Got all the pictures. As the tail end came by, they slowed them down, and I jumped on, away we went. I got a whole pile of movies of that thing. But then we came back to we went to Fort Francis, tied up there overnight, and then came back to Duluth the next day. But we went over the Mazabi Iron Range Railroad. You talk about a piece of track. Oh, beautiful. Not a bumper, wrinkle in the whole thing. They hauled ore over it, eh? That was for pulling
Okay,
off.
yeah, so
I don't know how fast that head end was. We had 4 engines, 250 people, he just dusting her. Just going, I'm going, oh. And smooth, eh? Nothing, he just whistled, eh?
so no slowers in that track.
No, sir, boy, he dusted her. Yeah, and then, oh yeah, I forgot about me and the Queen in 1970. That was, they ran us to, they had to go to Thompson, pick up that train, bring it all the way back through Manitoba, right back to Winnipeg. We went, started at Thompson, went to the Swan River, and then Dauphin, and into Brandon, and Winnipeg. Just tied it up in Winnipeg. That was a tough train. That was a lot of work that one.
I would imagine. But remind me, is it in Sturgeon, Saskatchewan, where the station is below Main Street?
Yes,
Okay.
that's where.
I'm gonna kind of interject what you're saying. I was at the time. Okay, Main Street in Sturgis is a bit of a slope.
Yeah.
And there's like a guardrail at the end of the street, and it drops down whatever number of feet, and the station was right below that. Well, this pickup lost its brakes or got popped into neutral, whatever, on its own, started rolling down Main Street. You know the story?
I remember when it happened. Yeah.
It rolled down, went through the guardrail, and hit the station. Now, good thing there was at least a 2-foot pony wall of concrete, but it hit hard enough and the walls were wood. Well, right where it hit was also the washroom.
Yeah.
Now, there was
An engineer
sitting, doing his business. Well, they took pictures. He just had slippers on. Well, knocked him off that, broke the toilet all the hell, and bounced him into the wall. He didn't get seriously hurt, but they had pictures of his slippers. You knocked him right out of his slippers. Well, now he's got to make the report. What happened? Well, and this individual, I'm not going to go into his name, but he was he had a difficulty explaining things. But he says, well, I was sitting on the toilet, and I got hit by a truck.
Yeah.
And any injuries? Yeah, I got porcelain in my butt.
Yeah, I know the engine man.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I believe he's long gone. So
Yeah. He's the same guy that smacked up at Beale there with the passenger train in 70. What was that? 73.
that was prior to. That was.
I think it was. I can't remember.
It was a little later. I was already
Maybe
on 70,
later.
73, 74 because that's when I hired on.
As he come over that hill, he had his air set, and then he released his air, and he had no air.
And where
And there's 91 sitting down at the gate waiting for him.
bang.
Bang. 6 engines destroyed. Yeah.
Move on down the line. Yeah. Well, I'll be ready now. I'll be ready when my train